You know, we've talked a lot in the past about, social media and how it's just kind of getting a little bit out of hand. So the UK schools, the UK Boarding Schools Association is more concerned about xenophobia than they are about the coronavirus. What they want to make sure is that nobody tweets mean things about Chinese people.
Oh my goodness.
Because apparently that's more dangerous than the actual virus.
But why are people tweeting mean things? Anyway, never mind.
Because people have nothing better to do than, we said this before, is that if Albert Einstein ever came back to life and said, Danny, what is the most important invention since I've been gone? What's been the most important invention? And you'd hold up your smartphone and you'd say, this little device has all the information, all the human knowledge in the world on this one device. What do you do with it? Well, we sit on the toilet and tweet mean things to people we don't even know and play video games.
Yeah, for all the good that it does, I think it takes a lot away.
It does a lot of good.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I mean,
the problem is I think that many people's patience is just eroded because everything's at the tip of your fingers. Mm-hmm. And so now, we need things right this moment. And, I think that we're seeing that amongst kids because they have these devices, and so we have this instant gratification. Mm-hmm. And even if you call somebody and you need something, you expect it done right this second, not, hey, okay, you're busy. Let me, there's a flow of things.
Think about this, right? Overnight delivery, same day delivery now. I mean, It used to be we could order something and it got here in 3 or 4 days. That was fine, right?
Yeah.
Then it was, Amazon changed that with 2-day delivery.
Yeah.
And ever since then, the race has been on for now we're down to same day delivery. And in some cases, delivery in 2 hours. Mm-hmm. Right? Got to have it right. If I buy it, I want it right now. But I'm too lazy to go drive down and get it. Right? I want to buy it and have it delivered to my house. It was interesting. My wife and I were talking about this. My kids don't have we try to teach our kids concepts of money, but they're still kids and they still don't really get it, right? They assume that because food is in the refrigerator, it's free.
It's magically delicious.
It just kind of shows up.
Yeah.
So they still, we're trying to help them make that connection, right? We make them pay for their own gas and insurance and that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's coming, right? But there's still a lot of this global concept of money that just doesn't quite click entirely. Grubhub is one of those problems that, hey, we can just order food and have it Grubhub. Okay, well, that's fine, except there's a delivery fee and there's the tip and on top of food. And what I've tried to explain to my kids is, and we're way off the Fed topic. We're coming back to the Fed. Just hang on. We took a slight detour. But the one thing I try to explain to my kids is that when you grow up and you're out on your own, you're going to understand very quickly how much leakage you have in your budget. And this is the problem. When we take a look at, 80% of Americans, they can't make ends meet and blah, blah. If you actually dig down into people's budgets, they have huge leakage in little things, right? It's the $5 Starbucks coffee, here and there and delivery
subscriptions
fees.
It's
just this leakage everywhere. And it seems like, it's just $5 here. It's just a couple of dollars there. It adds up, and it adds up to a lot. And when my wife and I review our budget, we're always looking for those kind of leakages, and we have it just like everybody else, right? That happens, and it shows up in eating out too much, that type of stuff, and it's hard to keep that under control. But it's with all these immediate gratification services that we have on the internet, we're paying all these additional fees and taxes and tips and other things that doesn't seem like a big thing right now. But when you add it up over the course of a month, over the course of a year, you'll be surprised just how much money that could have gone into savings or something you really wanted versus, driving to go get your food or cooking at home.
That's right. So many people are much better off than they actually feel or think. Because they may say, well, I'm not saving any money. Well, yeah, you've got a lot of really bad habits, or you have that kind of the stealth leakage that you just don't realize you have because you have Netflix, you have Disney, you have all the new things to watch television and every different app that you can have, and they all come with some type of cost, albeit not very much, but they all add up.
Yeah. Well, there's an interesting, just recently, I think it was CNBC or MarketWatch did a calculator. And they said, plug in all of your services that you subscribe to, right? So you put in Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus, and then your Wall Street Journal subscription, blah blah blah, and you start adding all that up, and you're spending $20,000 and $30,000 a year on all these services that used to be all bundled up, and the whole idea was it was trying to show that there was this whole movement a couple of years ago about unbundle, right? It's you just quit bundling, unbundle your stuff, and it's cheaper, just go buy the services you want and blah blah blah, get rid of cable. But the problem is that you're now paying more for all these unbundled services than you are when you were paying for the bundled services.
Well, because you need so many different ones. I've actually talked to people who are going back to regular cable. Everybody cut the cord.
We did.
And they're going back.
We went back.
Yeah.
Wow. We did too, because after we started adding it all up, it's like because most of the stuff that you get on these independent services are actually all on cable. So
yeah,
it's actually works out to be cheaper. So, but that's what that happens sometimes. Anyway, back to the Fed. Right. So just before the break, Danny and I were just talking a little bit about the Federal Reserve is going to announce their actions today. And, the question that Danny left off with is, what's the over and under that they're going to change their outlook on this liquidity? And the problem and the issue is they're not going to change much. The reason is they can't. In 2018, they tried to normalize interest rate and monetary policy, right? They tried to raise interest rates, in anticipation of the next recession. So they tried to raise interest rates. They tried to reduce their balance sheet so they have some ammo, kind of kind of chambered, right? For the next recession, so they would be able to hit the next recession, have a smaller balance sheet, have higher rates. Then they can lower rates, which is their primary tool for combating recessionary drags, and have this ability to expand their balance sheet to help offset liquidity issues, et cetera, in the markets, to help stabilize the next recession. Well, immediately the market declines by 20% from all-time highs. Now that's nothing, right? It's nothing. In the grand scheme of a market that's up well over 200% from the 2009 financial lows. We should have let them do exactly what they were doing. They were doing the right thing. Of course, Donald Trump comes out and he starts lambasting the Federal Reserve because he's hurting the stock market, and we need to have zero rates. We need to, in fact, have negative rates like we have in Europe. And, of course, by December, the Federal Reserve completely caves to the pressure and begins to cut interest rates, reignite their balance sheet, just and these type of activities in 2019, which led to a 30% surge in the market. Great. Problem is now they are trapped in a position they can't withdraw liquidity, they can't raise interest rates, they can't prepare for the next recession because it'll cause a market correction, and that will impede economic activity.
Look, it was a fantastic political move. You think about this chess game, because he's going to come back and say, if the market falters, especially during this year, an election year, he comes back and says, look, this idiot didn't lower rates quick enough.
Right.
These guys have been fighting me tooth and nail all along the way. If they had just listened, just like he said, well, the market would be up 5,000 to 10,000 points higher. Mm-hmm. Well, would it? But I do think that's something that he kind of has a scapegoat to some extent. Now, what I really wonder is, do they change their verbiage surrounding why they're doing this quantitative easing in the repo market?
Right.
Because if you remember, initially they came out and said, well, there's a big institution, somebody had to make a tax payment, which you and I both know that's actually planned for, right?
Exactly.
We estimate those things just like you and I do, and anybody else, any business does. But then they came out and said, well, there may be an institution that's a little bit weaker than others, but we're not going to tell you who it is.
Right.
And then the most recent one was the hedge fund deal.
Right.
That hedge funds are so far levered that they can't have them unwind these positions without tanking the market, essentially, which is really scary if you put that in context, because that just means they gave these hedge funds an insurance policy. Mm-hmm. And so what are they going to do? They're probably going to continue to lever.
Of course they are. Yeah, and again, we don't really know the reasons for all this liquidity. We make these assumptions about hedge funds and other things. I mean, that, and there are risks out there.
Yep.
What we're being told is simply we got tax pay. It was the turn of the year funding. We had to make sure there's plenty of money for the turn of the year. Mm-hmm. Then we had to make sure there's plenty of money for April tax payments. And again, so the big thing today is do they say, hey, we're good, reserves are where they need to be, so we can taper off this repo activity we're doing? Or, and this is going to be the big or, if they say, well, we're going to need to extend this maybe into May or June for some other reason, right?
But Lance, if any of these are the reasons, How come they haven't done it since 2008?
Well, yes, of course. That's what I'm saying. We all know we all know intuitively that they're bailing out a hedge fund or a bank.
Yeah.
But and they won't tell us, and they've sealed the records, so we won't know for 2 more years. But in 2 years, we'll find out who they were bailing out. But in the meantime, what they're hoping is by the 2-year mark, this will all be behind us, and nobody will care at that point. We'll see. Be right back after the break.
Now don't you worry about my boyfriend. He's a boy whose name is Mr. No. I don't want him, couldn't stand him. He wasn't good, so I...
Can't catch the whole show now? Listen to our podcast later at realinvestmentadvice.com.